Okay? We left off on Samachim Beis. My Havialo, we're holding over here. Okay? My Havialo. We have the question if a person's Makarish B'Yid Echod, Choshen L'Kedushin, Ein Choshen L'Kedushin. So we cited multiple people said, Ein Choshen L'Kedushin. You don't value it whatsoever, it has no value. The woman does not need a get, she can remarry. And at worst, the person who says, I married, and even according to what his own statement, it's not a Vishav Nafshe Chaticha D'Yisura. The cases in the Mishnah, we said, a man says to a woman, I married you. So you say to him, how did you marry her? And he would say, well, I put a ring on her finger, nobody was there, it was just the two of us. It's not Shav Nafshe D'Yisura, because even according to your own statement, what you're saying, you never did an act of marriage. Because an act of marriage means the presence of two witnesses. So when he says, I married you, that means we had two witnesses, and I put the ring, and I had in mind to marry you when I gave you the ring. That's Shav Nafshe D'Yisura. Based on your say-so, you're the husband of this woman. She denies it. You can't impose your status on her. But if the man would say, I married her, there were no witnesses. In Choshen L'Kedushin, there's not even the basis to say Shav Nafshe D'Yisura. Because what you're saying is nothing. It's, even according to what you're saying, it's not an act of marriage. Below 12 and a half. No, of course it requires witnesses. Same thing. Except he doesn't need her consent. Right, of course he needs witnesses. Definitely. There's a machlokes Rishonim regarding Yibum. Right? Levirate marriage. Yibum. When the Torah says, do you need two witnesses on Yibum? Like you need two witnesses on marriage, you need two witnesses on Yibum. Still, but it goes to another level. Right? The Gemara says, Yibum Mishmaya Kamaknei. Heaven causes the transfer. Of course, normally it's not permitted. But the question is that it's true. Mishmayim Kamaknei, because, but the fact is, does that be in the presence of witnesses? As a marriage has to be present, because it goes from Yavam is only a love. Once the act is done, she becomes an Eshes, she becomes his wife. So there is an advancement of relationship over here. So it's Machlokes Rishonim. I understand that there is a connection, but whatever connection it was a weak connection. It becomes a stronger connection. So to bring about the stronger connection, that's the argument. Do you need witnesses? Don't you need witnesses? So remember, the first time this was the so-called, what was interesting. So there's a famous Chuvas of Rashba. There's a response from the Rashba who says you need witnesses. What is the Rashba with thousands of responsa? What is the number of the responsa? The Rashba where he says you need witnesses. Shin Chov Ches. Shochach. You want to remember which one is Shochach. Shin Chov Ches. Shochach means to forget. But that's how you remember where it is. Good. Alec is serious. He missed it. Okay, let's go further. The question is not, it's an awful question. It's not relevant to this. Okay, so I'm just making a statement. The Kaddish Beit Echod Ei Choshen L'Kedushin. We have number. But we have an argument. One says Choshen L'Kedushin. Right? So the Gemara says, My Havi Aloch. So what's the halacha? Does she need a get? Doesn't she need a get? Is she a suffocation isha? V'nei Echod says, or if the man married it, and they both say, we were married in the presence of one witness. They both admit. Does it have any value? It doesn't have value. Rav Kana Amar Ein Choshen L'Kedushin. Rav Kana says it's nothing. Rav Papa Amar Choshen L'Kedushin. L'Kedusha, we have taken into consideration. Therefore, she would need a get misofik. Amalei Rav Ashi Rav Kana might die toch. So Rashi says to Rav Kana. Rav Kana says it's nothing. What is the basis for your position? The Yalfis, David of Mimamon, correct? The Torah says regarding any monetary, what's considered evidence for monetary, Al Pi Shnayim Eidim Yokum Dover. Right? That's what the Torah says. If you want to establish fact regarding any monetary issue, you have to have two witnesses. Anything less than two credible witnesses, it's not evidence. So the Torah uses the word Dover. Al Pi Shnayim Eidim Yokum Dover. Regarding a woman who commits, a man claims his wife committed adultery. It says, Ki motzavo ervaz dover. He uses the word dover. So we have Gzera Sheva, dover dover mimomom. Just as regarding monetary issues, you have to have two witnesses to be evidence. For marriage, or anything which relates to one's marital status, you have to have two witnesses. That's dover dover mimomom. So he says, so what do you say? He says to Rav Kana, why do you say you have to have two witnesses? Because we learned David David Mimamon. So now we ask a good question. If a person would say, I owe so and so, I go on record to say I owe so and so $1,000, right? The strength of that statement is equivalent as if 100 witnesses said you owe $100, right? That's what it is. We say Hodos Baldim Eidim Dami. So when the woman says, I am married, if the reason why you're saying you need witnesses is based on the source is monetary, if a person says, I owe money, it's like witnesses say he owes money. I borrowed. We say, a woman says, I'm married. Right? You shouldn't have to witness whatsoever. But yeah, you say Rav Kana said it's nothing. Unless you have two witnesses, it's nothing. At best, it's Shavnash Chaticha Disura. A man says, I owe $1,000. The court goes and they take $1,000 worth of property from him, based on that statement. It was said correctly. Wait. The Gemara's going to answer that. That's the Gemara's answer. Okay? Omalei hosel lo k'machayiv lachrini. Hocho k'machayiv lachrini. Hodos baldin kvei yudin domi is only if it's not chav lachrini. It's only if it's not a detriment to anyone else. If a consequence of that admission, that statement, is a consequence to others, a detriment to others, we don't believe the person. For instance, let's say a person has a creditor, and a person has an asset, and he says, and the creditor is coming to take the asset, he makes a statement. This asset belongs to so and so. I go on record. This asset belongs to so and so. Is not believed. Because since there was a creditor, and the creditor has a claim, if in fact it's his to take that, to collect his debt, that statement is a statement which denies the creditor a location to be compensated for the debt. Therefore, you have to bring witnesses. Your statement means nothing. Man, he has no creditors, and it's not a detriment to anyone else. It has no negative consequence. I go on record, this table belongs to so-and-so, it belongs to so-and-so. That's not chavla. A woman says, I'm married. I'm married. What does that mean? That means his brothers or off limits, right? His mother, his grandmother, whatever it is. There are all kinds of what? Of consequences. It's a chavla chrini. You're denying other people. Okay? So Rashi says, what's the chavla chrini? Shekrovuseh nesru bo ukrovov nesorim bo. Right? Krovuseh, her relatives are not permitted to him, to her husband. Now he can't marry her sister. But she says, I'm his wife. Right? So he's not permitted to tzachos isha, ima, whatever it is, all her relatives. No. He's not. If it would be her ksuba, you're right. Let's say he would say a certain asset which is it's linked to the ksuba. He's not believed. He's not believed. No. We don't deal with potential. It's reality. Heirs also. The heirs have no claim today. They have no claim. Heirs only after he dies. It has no relevance now. It means presently. Presently. Give you an example. We rule halacha. If I want to purchase something on behalf of another person to give him a gift, and I buy it and have in mind, I'm buying on behalf of another person, unbeknown to another person. What do we say? Zochel Adam Shalom B'Fanov. What about Magbi Mitzil L'Chaveiro? There's a lost article in the street, and I want to pick it up, and when I do the act of acquisition, I have in mind on behalf of a third party. Right? When I lift up that, take possession of that object on behalf of the third party, it becomes the third party's. Now, I've denied everyone else the right, if they would come upon that object, they can't take it any longer. So there's a question, is that Chav Lachrinik? We rule halacha, Magbi Mitzil L'Chaveiro, Lo Kono Chaveiro. That's considered a detriment to others, because you're denying everyone else the opportunity which exists now. Because right now, being onerous, every person, if he would come upon it, he'd be able to take possession of that. By you taking on behalf of the third party, that's Chav Lachrinik. That's a detriment to others. We don't say Schio b'mok shechav lachrini. That's something else. Doesn't make a difference. That's also correct. That's the other side of the equation. Me do zochen naf zochen. I could have taken it for myself, but you didn't take it. But you see, not that way. What? Not a problem. But then you have to give it to a third party to transfer it. You can't be the transferor. Okay? Here you're actually you're the transferor because you are the third party. That's called Chav Lachrini. Okay? Now listen to the story here. Marzutra of Rav Ado Sabo b'nei Rav Mori bar Isur. Marzutra Rav Ado Sabo, they were the sons of Rav Mori bar Isur. You know who this is? Rav Rami is Rami bar Rochel. Usually a person is referred to by the name of his father. Rami was a grandson of Shmuel. There's a story in Ksubis, okay, where there were a number of Jewish women who were taken captive, and the Goyim brought them to Shmuel's community and to be ransomed. So somebody says to Shmuel, the girls, they're here, we have to protect them, because the Goyim, they still could defile them. So he says, you don't have to worry about it. That's what Shmuel said. You don't have to worry. So somebody says to Shmuel, and if it would be your daughter, would you be worried? I mean, somebody else's daughter, you're not worried, but if it would be your own, would you worry? The moment the person made that comment, Shmuel's daughter soon after was taken captive, and she was raped by a goy. The goy's name was Isur. Isur, that was his name. And she conceived a child. She gave birth to Mori. Rav Mori was the child from the goy. And afterwards, this goy, he converted. He was known as Issa Giura. He was an Issa the Ger. That's what he was known as. That was Rami bar Rochel's father. But because his father halachically wasn't his father, because time of conception he wasn't Jewish, so Rav Mori was always called Rav Mori bar Rochel. Rav Mori, the son of Rochel, because the child identifies with the mother. Okay? So his name was Issa Giura. Marzucha Rav Ada Saba b'nei Rav Morik. They were sons of Rav Morik. Bar Isur. Here he's referred to as Bar Isur. It's interesting. Because here we're not identifying him, we're talking about the grandchildren. Okay? Polig Nichsai Badi Adodik. They divided. They divided a piece of property or their nechosim, their assets, between the two of them. It was not in the presence of witnesses. So that means each one was a full owner in everything. So when they divided, it means each person had to transfer his rights in the other half to the other party, and each person was the full owner in each 50%. What he took. But it wasn't done in the presence of witnesses. Also coming to Ravashi. So they came for Ravashi to ask, since it wasn't done in the presence of witnesses, Omrle Apishnai Meidim, Omrachmono. The Torah says, regarding monetary issues, it's based upon two witnesses. When the Torah says, Apishnai Meidim Yokum Dover, what does that mean? The boy lim hedl motzi hadri. Vana lo hadri. Is the Torah saying the reason why you need witnesses, it's only purely evidence that if something took place and you should try to back out or do something dishonest, you have the witnesses there to protect you? And since we're not interested in backing out, we trust one another implicitly, there's no reason we need witnesses. So therefore, when we divided the assets and each are transferred, the other one, whatever, to have full rights, it's a valid transfer, although there were no witnesses. Because the value of witnesses is purely that the person should not be able to act dishonestly regarding the transaction. You cannot establish fact unless it's done in the presence of witnesses, similar to marriage. Marriage is not verification. Eidim on marriage is what? That's creation. Marriage can only come about if it's in the presence of witnesses. Not in presence of witnesses, it's not a marriage. So it's not verification of fact. It's creating the state. So that was the question. When Torah says, Al Pishnai Eidim Yokum Dover, in regard to money, is it the equivalent of marriage? And therefore, if it's not in the presence of witnesses, it's not a valid transfer? Well, no. You only need them because there's a question. If there's any question arises later, it's only to verify what happened. So if that's the case, we don't need it. Because each of us trust the other implicitly, there's no reason for it. That was the question to Rav Ashi. Omar Lahu, Lo Ivru Sadi El Deshakri. God only created the principle, the concept of Eidim, only for verification, that a person should not be able to lie. If there's any degree of dishonesty, the witnesses, you bring the witnesses, they'll verify fact. It's purely for verification of fact. That's the value of Eidim. That's Rav Ashi. So if that's the case, the transaction, although it was not done in the presence of witnesses. But we're not talking about kiddushin. No, we're not coming. That's being smart. That's being smart. You understand? The Gemara says, you purchase a piece of property, you get a deed. Even though the Gemara says that karka is nikne bekesef, you could transfer property with money, but you could also transfer with a deed. You could purchase property with a deed. If the owner gives a deed to the buyer, giving the document, the deed, that causes the transfer of the property, right? What happens? It says, I have no time to have the deed written up. Right now, I'll give you money. If there's any question, he's not going to be able to, if the seller may deny he ever received the money, you better get yourself a deed. Because otherwise he could cheat you. So what do you have the deed? It's verification. If you purchased it with money, what is the basis for what is the value of the deed? Purely to protect the buyer. Because property was transferred. Okay? So sometimes the deed itself is the transfer. Sometimes it's only to protect the buyer. Why does a person lend money with a document? What do you have a documented loan, right? Okay, everybody here is without the mic. It's fine. Right? I mean, you establish fact. To establish fact. You want to establish, that was his question, what does Yokum Dover mean? Do you create the Dover or you establish fact? So is it verification or is it what? Or is it establishing fact? It's not specifically Yerusha. They were partners. I understand that. Same thing. We're partners. Now we want to divide. So when we're not... Let's not talk about kiddushin. Right now, that question was monetary. So Rav Ashi says, Lo ivri sadi el l'shakri. Look, we'll talk about, there are many things that have to be clarified here. Okay, now, the Gemara says in Adorim, now we have a principle known as hefker. Normally, when you want to remove something from your domain, how do you remove it normally? With a kinyan. If I own something and I want to transfer it to a third party, I say, it should be yours. What does it mean? What effect do those words have? Have no effect whatsoever. If you want to transfer it out of your domain to the other person's domain, you need an instrument of transfer. Meshicha, Hagbo, taking physical possession to cause that transfer. Chalipin, bartering, whatever it is, something. But words don't mean nothing. There's a chiddush, hefker. Person says, I disown this, that I no longer own it. The moment you say that, it's no longer yours. It actually becomes ownerless. So the Gemara says in the Dorim that when you disown something, it has to be done in the presence of 3 people. Why? Because whenever a person does anything, even a kinyan, what is a key element in a crucial, a basic element in transfer of acquisition? Gemira's das, intent. The person, let's say he's forced to transfer something, and he doesn't say rotzani, or even he says rotzani. The Gemara says in Bava Basra that we say pli v'zovin zvini zvini. Person takes a personal honor, says, look, I want your property. I told you a story many years ago. There was somebody who used to come to a shir, and he had a house in Jersey Shore. And it was a house on the water. He had a dock. He had a boat. One day, a black limousine pulls up by his house. A few people walk out. Black hair slicked down, cigars. Knock on his door. Yes, what would you want? We would like to talk to you. They come with a brown bag. And they say, we'd like to buy this house. We like its location, and we'd like to buy it. He says, not for sale. He said, this is the black. He said, open the bag. It's filled with cash, the value of the house. You could either do it the easy way or the hard way. And that was the end of the discussion. He took the bag, and he moved out. Left everything behind. Okay? So the Gemara says, in that case, if he took the money and he says, rotzani, although it was under duress, under threat of life, zvini zvini. Since factually he got market value for the house, even in that situation, it's considered a transfer. That's called Gemira's das. That's the sufficient intent to allow it to transfer. What about if they wouldn't have paid him? And we're just taking it over. It's not valid. But physically they took possession. Taking possession without intent of the seller or the transferor to transfer it out, it means nothing. It means nothing. So you have to need some degree of what we call Gemira's das. Okay? So now, when I go through the motion, I give you something, I allow you to take possession. I say, you're permitted to take it. Person says, the Gemara says, Le chazeku kni. You can purchase a fixed piece of property with chazaka. Chazak means making some physical alteration, changing the lock, putting a fence, digging into the ground. I say, I give you permission to do that. When the person does that action, the person acquires the property. That's called kinyan chazaka. Okay? But you need the action, because the action, allowing the person to do the action, based on your say-so, that, together with intent, the person acquires it. But just saying, it's yours. I intend it to be yours. I want it to be yours. I swear it's yours. Whatever way you express it means nothing. But yet hefker, it should be ownerless. It has to be in the presence of hefker exer sakosov. That if you say it should be ownerless, I disown it, it becomes ownerless. But the question is, but the key element of transfer you need who said he's serious? Maybe he doesn't mean it. Maybe it's just words. Right? How do we know when he said it? So the Gemara says in the Dorim, anything you do in the presence of 3 people is the equivalent of public knowledge. 3 is public knowledge. If you make that statement under 3, I am disowning this piece of property or this item, whatever it may be, you can't go back on it. Because the moment nobody's going to make that kind of statement unless he means what he's saying. Because you understand you're going to have repercussions as a result of that statement. So therefore, that assures that when you make the statement in the presence of 3, he means what he's saying. But if it's not within the presence of 3, then it's not hefker. Okay? That's the Gemara in the Dorim. No, it's public knowledge. You ever hear the express 3 is a crowd? 2 is company, 3 is a crowd. Okay, that's basically what it's based upon. No. It becomes public knowledge, like macho. When you make a macho, persons you go before 3 people, say the man is a thief, he's occupying my property. So because he wants word to get back to the person who's occupying the property that he's a thief. So he's going to hold on to his shtar, his evidence, his document that he owns the property. Right? That's the rationale of macho. Okay? Wait. So Tosa is a question. Now there's an argument. The Gemara says that habodik tzorach sheyevatel. When you bodek, when you search the chametz, the 14th night, you need bittul. Now, what's bittul? So there's an argument rishon. Firstly, in the text of the bittul, what do we say? So there's the machlokes rishon. We have a text, and there's different text what to say. The Mechaber says, and that's Tosas text, it should be botel ka'afra da'ara. That's Rashi's text. You don't say the word hefker. Tosas says no. You have to say it should be hefker ka'afra da'ara. Because Tosas says bittul is hefker. Rashi says bittul is not hefker. Bittul is it's a negation. I value it as nothing. It's not a disownership. It's I value it as nothing. Tosas says no. It's hefker. So Tosas asks on himself if it's hefker. It says bittul belibo. It's the privacy own home. A person makes the declaration of disowning the chametz. So if that's the case, why is it you should be in violation of Bal Yuram Bal Yimotzei? It's not a valid disownership. That's Tosas' question. There's a little bit of review of many things we've learned over the years. So Tosas answers in Psochim, but it's not simple because he doesn't explain it so well. He says because the whole idea of having three, that's really rabbinical. On a Torah level, you make that statement, the presumption is you have sufficient das. Rabbinically, we say, you know something, the guarantee the person can't say he didn't mean it. If it's said in a public setting, there's no way he definitely meant it. So it's only rabbinical. So over here, it's a question of doraisa, right? So it's sufficient. That's what Tosas says. There's a Tosas Rajba over there says something differently. Why would I if a person, let's say, has something of value and he says it's ownerless, what would I question his intent? Why would you question his intent? He's relinquished something of value. What about if he retains it every moment he has? He's going to be in violation of Bal Yuram Bal Yimotzei. So we could say with certainty, he definitely means what he's saying. That's a Tosas Rashba. There's a famous, if you remember then, people on Psochim here, I mentioned there was a tshuva that was written, a response written a few hundred years ago. There was a person who lived in Russia. He was married to a shiksa. Married to a shiksa. And the town, they sold the chametz to his wife. She was the goy. She was the non-Jew. They sold the chametz. See, they had a distillery. They had all the chametz. Okay? So, become the whole question. Chametz about Pesach. If a Jew owns chametz on Pesach, after Pesach, no Jew is permitted to benefit from it. So since we say, Mashakonsi Shekona Bailo, we say the assets of the wife are transferred to the husband. So therefore, her husband was in possession of, he's a Jew, regardless of what his beliefs are, but he's a Jew. Wait a second. Okay, good. I'm not writing this response. Okay, I just wanted to tell you that. So the person says, but factually, he's not married to her. According to halacha, a woman is the wife of a husband, her assets transfer to the husband. But she's not his wife. This has been in Russia, the lawyers, at that time, all the assets of the wife, Dina Malchusadina, belong to the husband. So if that's the case, legally, he's the owner of the asset. So again, so a Jew's in possession of chametz, we have a problem. What do we do? So he answers, he cites a Rashba. So he says, the Rashba says like this, as much as the person is not a good Jew, he's married to a non-Jew, but does he want to be in violation in areas which he doesn't have to be in violation of? He doesn't want. We could say with certainty, what does he need it for? After Pesach, he has to give it back. He's given in either way. So he's not benefiting. So it's all loss, no benefit. So we could say with certainty, as much as they want to transfer to him, but if a man says, I don't want it, you can't impose ownership on someone if he doesn't want to own it. So therefore it remains the shiksas. Remains the goy, therefore it's permitted after pay. That was the psak. It was, I forgot the Chuvas Yeshuas Yaakov. No, it was based on the Rashba. He cites a Rashba, it bases the ruling, therefore it's considered the chametz of the non-Jew. Therefore, after Pesach, when the Jews repurchase it, it's permitted chametz. The Jew would not want it. Okay? That's what he answers. So similarly here, Tosas Rashba says, you only need three to guarantee the intent. But over here, by retaining it, every moment you're going to be in violation of Yuram Bal Yimotzei, there's no question. He definitely wants to disown it. But under normal circumstance, something which has value, first, it's ownerless. I relinquish my rights. But what? You're giving up something of value. Therefore, the guarantee that the intent is sufficient You say it in a public setting, that guarantees that he means what he's saying. Okay. There's a Gemara in which Tosas over here cites, but not in this context. The Gemara is a Shaila in the fourth parak in Bava Metzia that an acquisition that you're able to transfer something is called chalipin, bartering. How does it work? Let's say you want to sell me your grain. So how do you sell me the grain? If I give you, let's say, a garment, when the owner of the grain takes possession of the garment, the grain is transferred to the one who gave the garment. That's bartering. I give you the garment, you accept it for the grain is transferred automatically to the one who gave the garment. That's the bartering. Okay? So the Gemara says, there's a question, most niknas b'chalipin, most ain't niknas b'chalipin. Let's say I have coins, minted coins. This bartering mechanism, could you transfer coins or not? We rule halacha, most ain't niknas b'chalipin. Whatever it is. Learn Hazov, you'll see. Okay? There's a question. What about coins? Could you transfer it? With chalipin? So the Gemara cites a brisa. And once a proof from there, you cannot. Why? The halacha is that if a person does Masa Sheni, right, you take the first Masa, you give it to the Levi. Second Maser, the first and second years of the sabbatical cycle, is called Masa Sheni. What do you have to do with it? You have to take to Yerushalayim. What about if you have difficulty transferring the produce? Torah says you could be podeh, redemption. The owner of Masa Sheni, when he does the act of redemption, he has to add a fifth. A third party redeems it, doesn't have to add a fifth. But if he redeems it, he does have to add a fifth. Okay? Okay? So a person is in an orchard, and he has the Ma'aseh Sheni there, and he's not the owner, and he doesn't have the coinage. So, and the two people in the orchard, so the Gemara asks a question, and it says he has to add the fifth. He has to add the fifth. So the Gemara says, why? What does he have to? He has the ability to transfer coins to the third party with a kinyan chalipin. Let him take his garment and give it to the owner of the orchard. Let the owner of the orchard transfer the fruits to him. Transfer the money to him. He has no money. The man has no money. Let him transfer the money to him, and then afterwards he'll redeem it. He'll redeem it like a third party. So Gemara says he has no garment. You hear this? He has no garment. So, because Gemara wanted a proof from the ACC, can't transfer coins through bartering. Because what is it? It says over there he has to pay the fifth because he has no way to redeem because he doesn't have coins in the orchard. With this other person, he said, well, let him transfer the coins he had in his house, in his other location, through bartering. Evidently, it proves you can't transfer coins through bartering. Gemara says, no, the man doesn't have a garment. So he says, you mean the Tana set up the case, the man's naked? The man doesn't have it, take the shirt off his back, give him his shirt, or his pants, or whatever it is. But Gabri Taruloi Kaskina, we're talking about a man's naked. That's the Gemara. So therefore, it proves. So Tosi asks a question, why does the person make Odos Baldin? He could say, the coins that are in my house belong to so-and-so. Just the two of them are there. It's called Kinyan Odisa. Let him make a statement in the orchard. So by making that statement, the coins become the other person's. It's called Kinyan. Rabbinically, there's a Kinyan Odisa means you could transfer the coins. Even though the coins weren't his, but making that kind of statement, I go on record, the coins that I have in my house belong to so-and-so. No, the statement, it's the question, like Hodor's Baldin. The two of them are there. Wait a second, wait. Tosas asked the question, doesn't answer it. Kivega says exactly what you're saying. Kinyan Odisa only brings about the transfer if you can't refute your statement. You can't deny you ever made the statement, but it's only the two of them in the orchard. The man says the coins are his. What happens afterwards? He denies he ever made that statement. Who's going to say differently? So the Gemira's das that you need to bring about that value is not there. Therefore, that's the reason why the Gemara doesn't say that. To be continued.